We are in order on July 30th, 1 p.m.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Has everyone read the minutes of the last meeting?
Yes,
Anyone have any comments or objections?
no,
They are accepted and approved. Any comments on agenda item from members of the public or anyone else?
I don't have any.
The only substantive item on the agenda is the request for an advisory opinion by Greg Morris. He made a presentation to us last month. Invited to come back and wasn't able to do it. Something we should talk about either today or some other time. 1 p.m. on a weekday is most convenient for us. Need to think about.
Maybe mixing it up a little bit.
Yeah, or where it's an advisory opinion thing. We'll see how today. We have present Holly Wall and Dale Clark. Treasurer Holly is our town manager. Asked Holly anyhow to speak to the facts that underlie the Morris request, and if you would do that.
Sure. So the town budgets for our Moonlight Cruises within the general fund under our special event line item. So the town council receives a breakdown of expected costs for our special events for the year, and they approve that. So it's broken down by event. So in the fiscal year of 2019, we budgeted $5,700 for the Moonlight Cruises. And again, in this current fiscal year, of fiscal year 20, we budgeted $5,700. And that is again in the total special events line item out of the general fund. We do take generally a loss if you're looking at a fiscal year or even calendar year review of the Moonlight Cruises. The town operates at a loss on those, and we do expect to operate at a loss. They're seen as an economic driver into town. They're supportive of our fishing boat charter captains and supportive of bringing guests into the town. And looking at those that actually participate in the Moonlight Cruises, we get a guests from Northern Virginia, Washington, D.C., but then we also have a really good mix of Chesapeake Beach residents. Probably I'd say at least 50% are local residents. But just did want to clarify that the town does pay some funds out of pocket for the cruises.
Give us kind of some sort of general feel
Sure.
for that percent or dollar.
Right. So we have to book at least, or we promise the charter captain in order to book the cruise solely for the town that we would have 25 guests on board. So for example, and this is kind of an anomaly, it's not like this every cruise, but our July 19th cruise, we only had 9 members booked. So the town ended up having to pay the cost for those extra, which is $25 a person. In addition, we have some food items that we cover. So we'll typically do a cheese or fruit platter. It's pretty much bring your own drink. And then we also supply some items for the theme. So if it's a special theme, we might have, Hawaiian leis and things like that that we provide the guests. So there's some costs there. And none of these costs would include, the additional staff time that we have to plan it and actually work the event the day of.
Who actually produces the cruise? So do we contract with somebody?
We contract Rod and Reel for the Miss Lizzie.
There's a written contract?
It's not a written contract. It's more of an agreement that we would book 25 seats. Yes.
What are the terms in general? I mean, they have to provide Ms. Lizzie
Mm-hmm.
and a crew, and we pay them a flat fee or pay them the difference between Well, who sells the tickets?
So the town sells the tickets.
Okay.
We have an exposure of $625 for the cruise to book it. So that covers 25 tickets. We do have a slight upcharge in what we charge for our ticket price. So the seat is $25 per person on the boat. However, we charge $32 just to help cover some of the incidental costs. And so if we have over 25 guests on the boat, we pay $25 per person to rod and reel for those guests.
How about entertainment?
Not always. Occasionally, we'll have some. We had a guest speaker recently, or in this upcoming cruise, that we paid $200 for him, but not always.
Who provides that entertainment?
You know, in the last year, I looked for that, and I didn't see any contracts with any particular music vendors that we saw and entered an agreement with.
How would you contract that out?
Sure.
Is it a request for proposals and bids? Is it?
It would be more informal, just due to the dollar amount. We would typically reach out to a few vendors we've worked with in the past. We've worked a lot with John Lusky, Kenny Holmes. So we would reach out to them and decide.
Do you see if they're available? And if they're available?
Yes. Or the theme, whoever's the best fit for the theme, I would say, would probably be the highest consideration.
Who actually does the decision-making?
So I would approve any contract that's entered, but the mayor actually would sign off on any contracts for the town.
So if there isn't a contract, it sounds like we've been kind of operating just on a informal, verbal.
There's typically always a contract. So
There's-
a
okay.
performer would need a written contract.
Of some sort.
Yes.
Case, this scenario, who would give him the $200? Would it be a check from the town or a check from Rod and Reel?
No, that would have to come from the town under that scenario.
Would or would not?
It would,
It would.
yes.
That would be part of the $5,700 appropriated for cruises as a special event.
Correct. It would come out of the special event line item.
What's the total of the special event line item these days?
It's about $135,000. And that includes our fireworks display. It's pretty much everything.
Town council members, I'm just repeating what I think you said, and I have to apologize. I'm not wearing my hearing aids. If I miss, I may ask you to repeat stuff,
Sure.
not because you're speaking too softly, it's just I'm getting too old.
No worries.
Town council members have in front of them the budget proposal that they're considering. Something that shows a 100 and some odd, a large amount for special events, but then there's a list of the special events and the amount for each.
Correct. A breakdown. And there's a lot of discussion generally about the breakdown. A council member, we have, Councilmember Jaworski heads up Taste the Beaches. So, he'll advocate for more funds being available there typically. And we just recently increased that by about $5,000 this fiscal year. So their town council members are very kind of invested in the special events line item. There's a lot of conversation about that particular line item, I would say.
What are your requirements for sole sourcing a contract? You have to have a proposal that you write, specification. Sole source, let's say, for a musician.
Mhm.
What is the requirements for you?
We don't have any specific requirements other than an informal bidding process. So it would mainly be conversations with vendors. We typically review the terms of the contracts with our town attorney before they're approved, and then the mayor would sign off on it.
When you say informal bidding process, how does that go about? Some type of notification or a contract of, let's say, $200? Or do you just?
Likely
call
not.
people?
We're not putting anything in the paper. It would be more of reaching out to people we've worked with in the past.
Who does that reaching out?
Sometimes Marty will do that, as she's involved in coordinating the events, but there shouldn't be anything entered without the town administrator's knowledge, as I would notify the mayor.
So how do you make that decision if you have two people? What is your rationale?
We try to, just in terms of speaking kind of an informal rationale, for a small amount of $200, we would consider who we've worked with in the past. Again, the theme, who would be the best fit. If it's a particular theme, if it's a blues theme, obviously, we're going to want someone like a Kenny Holmes, who that's what he provides. So I would say that would mostly be generated by theme. And we do try to spread out the business in a way. We try not to stick with the same vendor. We do try to seek others in the area. We look for local musicians. I actually had just recently discovered one within the last couple months that we're going to consider for a future event. So I'd say it's a very informal process, to answer your question.
One of the things that Mr. Morris has said or suggested is that it's not uncommon for members of the town staff to then get paid for additional unrelated work for the town.
I'm not sure what that means.
Well, he says what's happening here is he's a paid member of the town council, and then the town has a need for entertainment on a cruise. And so that's, he's, town council job doesn't cover that. So he's asking whether he can take this extra task. He's saying that's not an uncommon situation.
I know of
Somebody
no,
else could be the entertainment for this.
so another employee of the town, a town
Yeah.
staff. I know of no situation where we're seeking work from a town employee. I can't think of any
Has that been done in
scenario.
the past?
Not that I'm aware of. Definitely not since I've been here. I have never hired an employee to do anything off hours.
What is your threshold for where you have to do?
60,000.
Up to 60,000.
Informal bidding process, anything under 60. But we do typically, I would say anything over 20,000. Internally, if we deem it's that much, we would do a formal bidding process. We lean more towards formal than informal.
What kind of justification? I'd like a memo to the file.
We have not, no, there's not a memo that's attached with the contract justifying why they were decided. Is that what you're asking? No, I can't think of a circumstance that we would have attached anything. Have you ever seen anything like that, Dale? Attached? Yeah, I can't think of any time we've done that.
In this case, who do we understand makes a decision as to who the musician is? Unreal or us?
No, Ride and Reel isn't involved in any way. And just all they're doing is providing the boat
Well, and the captain and the crew.
and the captain and the crew, right?
What you're saying is that in this case,
I would say in any contractual relationship, the mayor is the ultimate approval to everything.
He's probably not very involved in the mechanics of it. It's more like, this is what we as staff have decided. Here's the contract. Will you sign it? If you have any questions, let me know, kind of thing.
Staff, as in myself or Dale, would always make a recommendation to the mayor, and we always provide kind of justification as to why that decision was made before he signs off on it, and give him a summary
Right.
of the terms. So that, I think that's what you're looking for. I just can't think of a scenario that we had drafted that and attached it to the contract, but not a bad idea to do that in the future. So yes, if we instituted a contract with a musician, the mayor would sign it.
Better for worse, we don't have a situation where there's been an announcement that going to be a couple of cruises sponsored by the town. Anyone interested in being entertainment for $200 a cruise, all in, and the mayor chooses, staff makes a recommendation from among those who have volunteered. Only, well, so, I mean, that's, I don't know if we'll start discussing in a couple of minutes, but a matter of, there'd been competition and grades and everything. And by the way, just for the record, I've seen Greg entertain. He's wonderful. Just worth it to go to the wine store in North Beach.
What is your personal inclination toward hiring a member of town council for anything outside of sitting here in the council chambers?
I wouldn't recommend it, and I definitely wouldn't put a contract in front of the mayor that was initiating services with a town council member or town staff member.
But could you repeat that?
I would not recommend it, and I would not put a contract before the mayor that involved securing services through a town council member or a town staff member.
All the relatives of a
I probably wouldn't know it. We have that recently has flushed out that, especially in our bidding process, there's not a formal request of the bidder to identify who a relative is that they might be employing. So we're working on that with our contract template moving forward with our town attorney. So likely in that situation, I probably wouldn't know they were a relative unless they disclose that.
But if you knew,
Not recommended.
Yeah.
Yes.
child wants to work at the water.
It is currently. We have a lot of town council members with their children working at the water park. Likely not. I think it decreases conflict. I think it's difficult to manage a staff member that might have ties to some higher authority. I think it's a great place to work for our young youth, and the water park serves as a great outreach to Chesapeake Beach residents. I think it's unfortunate if you're a child of an elected official that you would be excluded from that. But I think it is a difficult situation to put a manager in.
Mr. Morris is following the exact course of action that called for in the ethics ordinance and makes a great deal of sense. That is asking in advance whether there would be a violation if this happens. And I think he's entitled to that. But if I understand it, even if we say that there's nothing in the current ethics ordinance that forbids this, that doesn't, it seems like highly unlikely that he'll actually be offered the opportunity to make this money. Okay.
That's correct.
I think the ethics ordinance ought to say, subject to being converted into legalese, no money appropriated by vote of the town council shall end up in the pocket of any elected official. On the other hand, that's not what, we don't have anything in, we don't have anything in the current ordinance that says that. And we don't actually have anything in what we've recommended. I jumped here. We got two big questions. One is, is there anything in the current ordinance that would forbid a member of the town council from being employed in any way by the town, part-time, temporary, one shot? Regardless of the answer to that, the answer is yes, the ethics ordinance bars that. We are authorized by the ethics ordinance to issue a regulation that would allow it. Okay. On the other hand, or at the same time, if we conclude that there's nothing in the ethics ordinance that bars this, then we, I think, are responsible to recommending to the town council, if we think it's, it ought to be barred, we should recommend that the ordinance be amended to say exactly, effectively that. Have, just for everyone, I may have mentioned this last time, the town charter, if you run for election, you must resign from any position in the classified civil service of the town. That sounds weird to me because it means you can remain in the unclassified service, which is supervisors. That's, the other thing is we have a nepotism section, which again interferes with the rights of staff members, managers to employ their relatives. So you ought to look at it because it doesn't bar the town from hiring members of the town council. I'm sorry, children of members of the town council. But on the thing that Mr. Morris asked, I don't, other members in our council, does anyone see anything in the current ethics ordinance that would forbid this? I kind of read this into the record. Here's what the current ordinance says. And by the way, in substance, so does we didn't change this. Right? This is section 25(3)(d)(1). Except as permitted by regulation of the commission when the interest is disclosed, or when the employment does not create a conflict of interest or appearance of conflict, an official or employee may not be employed by or have a financial interest in any entity subject to the authority of the town or that is negotiating or has entered a contract with the town, or hold any other employment relationship that would impair the impartiality or independence of judgment of the employee or official. Prohibition does not apply to employment or financial interests allowed by regulation of the commission. We have recommended that the ordinance be amended two ways that are arguably relevant to this. One is, for the first time, the ethics ordinance would say, decisions and other actions by covered people shall be taken in the sole interest of the town. We don't have that in the current, that's not in the model suggested by the state. And regarding employment, in general, a covered person may not be employed by or have a financial interest in any entity that would impair his or her impartiality or independence of judgment. My conclusion, looking at the current law, is that it simply does not forbid the town from hiring elected officials to do specific jobs at reasonable pay anyhow. There's no question here of bribery or anything. If this were $10,000, then we have another problem. But what Greg wants to do does not appear to me to be prohibited. What our advisory opinion should say, but I also think that sometime in the future, we should draft an amendment to the would codify the policy of the current administration. Just don't do this.
I guess one of the questions I have, is there a difference between where you have a sole source contract versus a contract request for proposals? Would there be any difference between one, theoretically, you've got, a list of criteria that the contract holder will have to meet, selected on the basis of price or cost or quality of work or professionalism. Effectively, if we're looking at the one option to not allow any town council member I don't know what the answer is. Differentiate between type of contracts and type of deal.
We need to think about that.
Let's say a member of town council, relatives had a contract with the town, buy, I don't know, electrical services or whatever. Would that mean that that town council member not be able to participate as long as the relative was selected? Criteria in the request for proposal.
I think some of it, to me, it goes back to that whole appearance thing. And I hear exactly what you're saying too, Mike. We don't want to exclude everybody, but one thing is a conflict of interest in fact, but we do reference, appearance of conflict, and that and that's where even, where we get to the kids working at the water park, it's somebody else whose kid wants to work there, and then they say, oh yeah, well, so-and-so only got that job because her mother's on the town council. That took my kid's spot. It's this perception of unfairness and the nepotism and all that. So, some of it is the whole process we talk about, documenting and making sure we have something to go back to, but still, I don't know that solves it.
I mean, you can get huge economic impact. That decision that council members make that impact their house, their neighbor's house.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
So,
Big dollars.
probably more dollars than,
Sure.
$100.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Where do you draw that line?
I may think back to your, feeling and observation that you don't think that the situation that the councilman described would be a violation of the ethics ordinance. I think in order to make that finding, the commission would have to determine that him or somebody similarly situated holding some employment relationship with the town would not impair his impartiality or independence of judgment in his capacity as a member of the town council. And if you can make that determination, then I would agree with you. But I do think that you would have to make that determination first. And that may be a case-by-case situation, depending upon the nature of the particular employment relationship between the official and the town. I'm not suggesting one way or another with respect to this particular issue, but I don't think it's quite as clear cut to say, no, there's no ethics impact. Not prohibited.
So the concrete question is, town council meeting, budget is presented, and a budget item is cruises, and a member of the council who would otherwise vote to move that item thinks, whoa, I could get $200 out of this, I'm going to vote in favor of it.
Oh, but there you're talking about prospective. I could perhaps get a
Yeah.
contract with the town to provide services. There's nothing, it's inchoate. There's nothing, fixed at that point in time.
So that doesn't seem to me, in this concrete case, that ultimately, the town council members ultimately, selling his services for a couple $100, in fact, had anyone would suspect that had anything to do with his voting in favor of the budget. Not working to eliminate that item. If the facts were different, right? Budget comes before the town council and Councilmember Smith moves to amend it by adding $5,700 for cruises because, as a matter of fact, he owns the boat.
That's a little bit different.
One would reasonably suspect that was a relationship that impairs his impartiality. I think if we opine that there's no violation of the current ordinance, it should specify that under these facts, as opposed to there never can be, even under this ordinance, an impediment to town council member ending up with money that's been appropriated.
We're talking about two different points in time.
Yeah.
The one point in time that we're discussing right now is the initial legislative act of appropriation of money for a particular purpose. And that has no direct tie to any potential future benefit, at least not under the circumstances we're talking about.
Mhm.
The next one is, okay, once that money's been appropriated, and then the town goes through some sort of selection process or hiring process
Yeah.
for somebody to do something that would be paid for from the money that was appropriated for that particular activity, then is a little bit different analysis.
Would be different if council member that provides entertainment at a facility once a month, and then went on for a year or so, that's part of his standard employment, and then the town votes on whether to subsidize that, somehow ends up with his getting a check from the town rather than employer. That didn't happen here. In that case, then, he shouldn't be participating as a member of the town council in deciding on that appropriation. But that didn't happen here. I think we should try to word something that's clear enough or vague enough. Not tie our hands. Of course, having in the back or front of our minds, the unlikelihood that opinion that this doesn't violate the words of the current ordinance doesn't mean the guy's going to get the contract.
Well, we have an attorney writing it.
Practice law anymore. I malpractice insurance. Yeah, so let's somebody would do a draft and circulate it. We voted on the last one, didn't we? Or did we just circulate a draft?
And then you vote on it. Because I think any official action of this body
Yeah.
needs to be taken in session.
Yeah.
By a formal vote.
All right, so between now and the next meeting, whatever that may be, the drafts. Anything else from our, thank you, very, very useful information.
Happy to join you whenever you have questions, either Dale or myself.
All right, comments by commissioners or members of the public? Hearing none, let's schedule another meeting sometime.
After I get back.
What's your vacation?
Monday through the 19th.
Between now and the ninth, I'm sorry, you leave on the 19th
4th through the
Oh.
19th, sounds like.
Leave on the 4th.
of August.
Be back in the office on the 20th.
Oh, hopefully 18th. 26th is the earliest.
I'm actually here for a whole month.
I am here at the end of August. So, does anyone have a calendar or what day of the week?
What day you looking at? Monday is the 26th.
Do we want to do an evening meeting as we talked about a little previously?
Okay.
How
with
does that
me.
impact you, Sharon?
Oh,
Or that last week of August? Is there anything
No,
good or bad?
no, there's nothing going on as I know of.
Start out with any Monday, the 26th?
Asked me this morning, I would say no go, but my hearing for the 26th canceled out. I'm over here. So that is now open.
We moved to Tuesday, I just get
Oh.
back
Yep.
that Sunday night, so.
August 27th, 7 PM.
How about 6? You want to do that? So it's not such a long day for
Yeah.
Sharon?
6.
How's that work for you, Fred?
Fine. That was at 6 o'clock?
Tuesday, August 27th at 6 PM. Moment, the only thing on the agenda is this. Right, all in favor of adjourning indicate by saying aye.
Aye. Thanks again, guys.
Thank you.
Dale, nice meeting you.
Yeah,
Howard,
nice
good
meeting
seeing
you.
you again.
Good luck on your
Welcome.
new job.
Thank you.